Hey guys, how's it going? Coming to you today with a video that has been a long time coming, that I've put off doing for a long time, and that I want to say up front, if you guys aren't familiar with the situation, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you haven't seen any of this freaking drama going on, then please just skip over this video. Don't watch it. It's ridiculous that I've had to do this, but as you're going to find out why, for those who are familiar with everything, this was something I had to do, at least for the best interests of myself, people I love. But if you have no familiarity with it, please skip over it. It's not worth your time. For those of you who have seen everything that's gone on over the past year, who wanted to know why I did what I did legally, then I'm going to present the facts for you in this video. I waited on this video for so long for three reasons. One, I just don't like putting negativity out there. I like doing videos to give information, all that kind of stuff. I don't like getting into pissing matches. Two, I wanted to give the legal process time to run its course. I respect the legal process. I believe that in the end, the right would win. And so I wanted to give that time to play out. I did not want to comment on anything while there was ongoing things. And three, by the time this all was done and over with, the holiday season was already fully underway. And this is not something I felt comfortable putting out during the holiday season. Felt it sent the wrong message. So not releasing this till after the holiday season. Okay, why did I sue Jason Blaha, aka Ice Cream Fitness? Let's start at the beginning, I guess. Back in April when I was in Australia, I was having an awesome time, but I started getting messages, getting comments left about my research, about how a guy named Jason Blaha, who I never knew, I had not ever heard of this person, had no problem with them. They could have had 1 million subscribers for all I cared. I had no problem with him. But this person, who I didn't know, had no problem with, had some criticisms of my research, quote unquote criticisms. Well, I had gotten enough messages that I was like, wow, well, I guess I better go see what's going on. I went to the video, and I turned it off after about 2 minutes, because it was pretty evident to me that the guy was, either he was joking, at least it seemed to me, that he was trolling, or that, just kind of the ridiculous stuff he was doing, like stuffed animals in the background, hitting a bicep shot, whatever. Just the way he was acting, it just seemed extremely foolish to me. And it was pretty obvious that based on his comments, he hadn't really read my research or didn't understand it, in my opinion. But I did have one major problem with it, and that's that, he basically said that, this guy, supplement companies pay for his research, and, so that makes it biased. I'm going to be very clear. Scivation, and no supplement company, for that matter, has ever funded a dime of my research. My research that I did on protein intake and branched amino acids was funded by the Egg Nutrition Center and the National Dairy Council. And if you go on my papers, my published scientific research, you can see exactly who funded it. It takes 2 minutes. Okay? So I had a major problem with that, but I did not really care to get into a pissing match about it, because I just thought, this guy's a troll, whatever, he'll go away. But I started getting a lot of hate mail. People telling me I was a sellout, I was a scumbag, and all this stuff. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that follow this guy. And indeed, he had, tens of thousands of subscribers on YouTube. So, I was kind of pissed off because I worked very, very, very hard for my PhD and my research. Broke my back, busting my ass on that research. And for somebody to say that it was all null and void, that bothered me. And somehow on Facebook somewhere, I was in a thread where he was there. And while not professional, I probably should have just not said anything. I was very upset that people were buying into this guy's nonsense. And I basically called him an asshole. And he did not care for that, apparently. And his response was, or at least I think his response of him being upset with me calling him out on that, was that he made a series of videos where he accused me of lying about steroid use. I believe he even specified which drugs I was on, like Tren. He said I was. He called me lame Nordstrom, believing that this would preclude any liability, legal liability of him, which is completely erroneous, as he later found out. But it's probably a series of, I think it was like a half dozen videos all told. And they got a lot of views. 10, 20, 30, I think one video had like 50,000 views. And needless to say, this caused an explosion of hate towards me. I mean, unbelievable amounts of YouTube comments, hateful comments, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just people crushing my integrity, telling me that I was a liar, a sellout, scumbag. And it really didn't cross the threshold of, I was already considering, some ways to protect myself, because my reputation is my business. My business is how I support my family. So when you come after my reputation, you're coming after my family, my means to support my family. Okay, so I was already very pursuing ways to defend myself. And then I started getting threats of physical violence against myself from some of this guy's followers. And that's tolerable for me, because I understand that people are idiots and will say idiotic things. But I started getting threats against my wife and my newborn son. And when you inspire so much hate that I start getting threats of the safety of my child and my wife, my family, and you make a series of videos where it becomes very obvious that your goal is to ruin my reputation, then I am going to take whatever steps that I feel are going to protect my family and protect my family's name. And all these videos were made, in the period, I think, from like May until August, which is when my wife was 9 months pregnant to about my son being 2 months old. Now, you can't see these videos anymore because they've been taken down, but this turned what should have been one of the happiest periods of my life into a nightmare. I was having panic attacks. I was having anxiety attacks. My wife was having panic attacks from this sort of thing. But when she saw, and I tried to hide them from her, when she saw one of the threats, she was shaking. And she saw a threat against our son. She was crying and shaking. So, and yes, while he never threatened us, Jason Blaha never threatened us physically, he inspired enough hatred to cause that. And this person even identified one of the people that threatened my family identified Jason Blaha as someone who had proven myself to be a liar and a scumbag, and that he was going to beat my wife and beat my child. And you can see this threat as we put it up here. So you took from me what was supposed to be one of the greatest moments of my life, the birth of my son, and turned it into something that I couldn't even enjoy. That the week my son was born, or like 2 weeks after he was born, more videos went up. So I started looking for legal advice, because it was pretty evident this guy was not going to stop, and that his goal was just to ruin my reputation. And he was succeeding. I mean, not amongst people who know me, not amongst people who know me personally, but obviously people who hate me were all over this. I mean, that's something I can change. But he was starting. You could see people who said, I used to like Lane, but after seeing what you said about him, after showing what he is, I won't be following him, or he's a scumbag, etc., etc. So I started looking for legal advice, and I guess he got wind of this. And he made statements such as, basically to the effect of, if I took him to court, he was going to ruin me, that it would ruin my reputation, he was going to take all my money, all this different stuff. That he would take me to court and essentially ruin me, was the gist of his statements. So I looked around for various law firms in the UK, because he is based in the UK. U.S. citizen, but moved to the UK, which made it complicated and expensive, very expensive. But I hired Withers, specifically Amber Brown, and her team, and we started putting together. My goal was not to sue him. I wanted to send him a cease and desist letter, get an apology, and be done with it. And so Withers told me right from the beginning to not just expect that to stop things, that I better be ready to go all the way, because if he didn't stop after we sent him the cease and desist, then he would just be empowered to do more wrong. So we had to go through and catalog every video, all the comments that were relevant. This took hours and hours and hours of my time and their time. We talked on the phone for hours. I mean, it was a long process, a long, expensive process. But I said right from the beginning that I was not willing to put a price on my reputation, on my integrity, on my family's name. Well, funny thing, right before we were going to send him the cease and desist letter, he contacted me in an email, and said in the title of the email, offering a full surrender and apology. And I put this email up for you guys to see. And all communication that I'm showing here, any emails or anything, have been approved by my legal team and are what's called open communication. And he was told that these were open communication and that these could be shared publicly, and continued to send them. Anyway, the gist of the email, which you can read, was that he felt like he had wronged myself and my wife, and while it was debatable who would win in a legal battle, that he wanted to apologize to us and make some sort of I think like some sort of reparation. And so fine, I'm a reasonable human being, and if somebody's willing to apologize, and I asked my lawyers, so we entered into negotiations essentially. I asked my lawyers, I want to be done with this. What's a reasonable amount to ask for, since he offered, some money? And they said, well, typically you get your legal fees and you get some damages. I said, look, I want this thing to be done and over with. What about a third of my legal fees and like a token amount of damages. And they said I was being too generous. But I said, you know, look, I want this over with for my family's sake, all this stuff. I don't want to have to take him to court. So I said, okay. So they offered him that. He rejected the offer outright and accused my lawyers of making up their fees, inflating their fees so I could get more money out of him. Essentially what he said. Which I don't know what he thinks legal help costs, but especially when you're paying for it overseas, it gets to be pretty expensive. However, I would have been willing to accept far less than that, most likely, if he would just have been willing to negotiate like a reasonable human being. But instead of doing that, threw the offer back in our face and then basically accused us of fraud. Accused my lawyers of fraud, accused me of fraud. So we then sent him a letter, you know, telling him, look, you know, the Withers sent him a letter saying, look, you know, essentially saying, if you enter back into negotiations, you know, our client will listen. If you don't, you know, he's not going to have any choice but to take you to court. So he rejected again, and so we sent him the lawsuit, which he promptly posted online, and he made several statements twisting the reality, saying that I was suing him in order to prevent criticism of my research, and that all research should be subject to peer review, something of that nature. And I'm putting the comments up. I'm doing my best to say the comments exactly as they were, but obviously I may be a little bit off, so I'm posting them so you can see these comments. But the thing is, the comments on my research weren't criticism. I wasn't suing him to prevent criticism of my research. The reality is my research was already peer reviewed. Any research you've seen published was peer reviewed over a multi-month period by high-level journals. Okay? This was already criticized. I'm pretty sure that they criticized it better than some dude on YouTube. But by posting that lawsuit, again, tons of hate. Unbelievable amounts of hate. Just non-stop. I thought it was bad before, but it got really bad once he posted it. And then he made a video accusing me of fraud. Now I have no idea why he thinks I committed fraud, but he said I committed fraud. I guess by you know, saying that there's no way I paid this much for attorneys. Also, what's interesting is that while he was saying I was suing him to prevent criticism of my research, that my research was not paid for by supplement companies or Civation, because Mark Lobliner called him and told him this, because Mark was CEO of Civation while I was doing my PhD research, while I was doing my research that's published, that he's talking about. Mark was the CEO of Civation, and Mark called him to tell him that Civation didn't pay for my research. So he was saying I was suing him to prevent criticism of his research and bypass the scientific process, when he knew that Civation didn't pay for my research, knowing full well it wasn't true. And he could have called the University of Illinois to see who did my funding. He could have called Mark, who he's on friendly terms with. He could have called Civation to ask them this, but no. Okay, so made a video accusing me of fraud, saying there's no way I paid this much for attorneys. I'm making it up. I will be honest and say I didn't watch the video. By that time I was so disgusted to the point with this whole thing I couldn't bear myself to watch these videos. But apparently in the video he dressed in Spartan gear and said that he was going to war. He was going to go to war. Well, when we sent this lawsuit, at least in the UK from my understanding, you have 2 weeks to respond to the lawsuit and then a month from when you receive it to present a reasonable defense. And the burden of proof is on him to prove that his statements were true. This is what I understand of UK defamation law. And this entire time, my lawyers were telling him, please seek legal counsel. They must have said this a dozen times. And after 2 weeks, he had not responded to the lawsuit. Even though he said that he was going to war, couldn't wait for his day in court, he had not responded to the lawsuit. We had the right to file for a judgment in default at that point in time. But we did not do that. My lawyers sent him another letter giving him an extra week of time and told him to get legal advice. We were going to give him an extra week of time to respond to it. Told him to get legal advice and told him exactly what would happen if he did not acknowledge it. That if he didn't acknowledge it, we would file for a judgment in default. Okay? And he replied by basically calling them a criminal extortion ring and posted things to that extent on Facebook. And actually, he posted up the contact information for Amber, my attorney. And I guess, trying to get hate mail sent to her is the only guess I can get as to why he did that. But even after we gave him an extra week of time, he still did not acknowledge the lawsuit, even though we explained exactly what would happen if he didn't. So we filed for a judgment in default. And I think that was around the 1st of November. And then a hearing was scheduled for November 19th. And about a week in advance, my attorneys provided him with notice of where the hearing was, how to get there, and all kinds of relevant information about checking in, all this stuff. So he didn't have any excuse not to be there. And after all this stuff about him going to ruin me in court, going to take all my money, going to war, at the hearing, he was not there. He did not even show up. Did not show up. And my lawyers made a presentation to the judge. And I should say that he also didn't have any counsel show up to represent him. So at the hearing, Judge Bean was presented with the evidence from my lawyers, and pretty quickly made an injunction against Jason Blaha on Ice Cream Fitness, which basically means that he cannot repeat the allegations that he's made, or he could be held in contempt of court, as I understand it, and was ordered to make an interim payment. Now, I've got some statements from Judge Bean that I'm allowed to post up, and I'm going to show those to you guys and read some of them, as well as put up some of the evidence that my lawyers presented here. And this is public record, I believe, so you can, I'm not putting up anything. This is transcript from the court. This is nothing that's closed. And I'm taking some snippets out here, but I've put the whole thing up for you guys to see, so you can make your own conclusions. The defendant, Jason Blaha, has repeatedly published on the internet allegations that he, the claimant, me, takes banned substances and that his research is bogus. The defendant has singularly failed to justify his conduct in either sense of the word justify, either in the sense in defamation law or more generally. I am quite satisfied with the uncontradicted evidence of the claimant that he does neither of these things. I am also satisfied that for the reasons set out in the witness statements, the remedy of an injunction is necessary to protect the claimant, because it is plain that the defendant threatens and intends, unless restrained, to go on publishing this defamatory material. He has taken no part in the proceedings, whatever, and he has only himself to blame for the fact that I am about to give judgment. during this process, right before this happened, Blaha sent a letter to my attorney saying that he was closing down Ice Cream Fitness and moving all his assets and everything else, and that I would never get a dime out of him. Well, it's not about the money for me. The injunction was the big thing for me. However, I don't want his money. And to prove that point, any money over my legal expenses I get for damages, I'm going to donate to my foundation, to Buy a Lane Foundation. So that money will go towards research grants, scholarships. At least it will go towards something positive. The purpose of this video is not to brag. It's not to inspire hate towards Jason Blaha. And I hope that all of you out there do not have any contact with him. Do not threaten him. Do not say anything to him. Just don't have anything to do with him. If you if you want to support me. Now, if you like Jason Blaha, you know what? That's your right. That's your opinion. That's fine. And I've repeatedly defended myself during this process from people who claimed that I was suing someone for their opinion. There is an enormous difference between an opinion and defamation, and the court recognizes that. They understand that everyone has a right to an opinion, and there are court precedents to prevent people from losing lawsuits based on opinion. So there's a difference between an opinion of, you know what, I think that some of his research may have been paid for by supplement companies, but I'm not sure, as opposed to stating it as fact and trying to destroy somebody's reputation. And there is a difference between an opinion and a slander campaign. There's a difference. And all I can say is that if you value evidence, take a look at the evidence. And we have provided this evidence that I've never failed a drug test. I've even been randomly drug tested in the off-season. I've volunteered for random drug testing in the off-season. And past that, so do you value evidence? There's no indication. We have signed sworn statements from Civation, from my PhD advisor, from all these people saying that Civation never funded in my research, that supplement companies never funded in my research. So do you value evidence? Or do you value hate-mongering and defamation? That's what I'm going to ask you. And I guess an appeal to logic. And I recognize that there are some people out there who dislike me and will never have anything to do with me, will never like me, and that's fine. I don't have any interest on suing somebody over an opinion. I did this to protect myself, my reputation, and my family. It's been a huge burden. An enormous amount of stress for myself and my family. And I hope nobody ever has to go through that sort of thing. But I'm sure it happens all the time. I will continue to put good research-based information out there, regardless of what people say and do. In the end, I basically had to come down to a question of how much do I value my reputation and integrity, and was I willing to let someone basically take as many shots at that and a run at that as they wanted to. And I had to make a big decision about a lot of money. Do I value, what price am I willing to put on my reputation? And at the end of the day, I decided that regardless of the outcome, regardless of the price, I was not willing to let somebody spread false statements and lies about me and try to ruin my reputation. I was not going to allow that. And you may criticize me for my methods, what I did, but understand that, in my opinion, if you value your integrity and you value your reputation and you have the means to defend yourself, I can't imagine anyone who values their integrity and reputation not doing something about it. And making video responses, getting into pissing matches, calling people names, that sort of thing, just to inspire back and forth. One, is not my style, and two, I did not want to give him the pleasure or the benefit of engaging him in any kind of public forum. So that's it. I hope this issue dies and that we never have to revisit any of this stuff again. I don't hate Jason Blaha, regardless of what people may think. And I hope that in time he will use his position of influence that he is required somehow for something positive. I hope that he finds it within himself to reflect and do more positive with his life. That's it, guys. And that's the only video I'm going to make on this topic. Regardless of what anybody says, what comes out, I'm not making another video about this topic. And I put up all the information here. I'll put up the documents on my website so you all can see, and you can draw your own conclusions from the evidence. For those of you who supported me during this process, it's appreciated beyond belief. For those of you who are on the fence about me, I hope that, again, you value evidence and take this and are willing to do something with that. And for those of you who hate me, you're welcome to your opinion. Hope you all have a wonderful year. 2014 has some great things on the horizon, and I hope we all can move forward in a positive direction. Thank you.